Queridas, queridos, welcome back to the BEAM&Flow podcast. I'm your host, Chloe Cofresi. I am a body-led transformation coach, and I help you heal yourself through detoxing your body, unwinding your nervous system, and creating a life that feels like summer camp. And the way that we do that is through your body, energy, awareness, movement, and flow. Your beam and flow, if you will. And I am so excited to welcome you back to season 10 of the podcast. I cannot even believe that it's season 10. So if you are brand new, this is not 10 years of the podcast. It's been about 2 years, 2.5 years, but this is season 10, and the way that the podcast works is that every season, so every solstice and equinox, we release 4 new episodes every season, and every once in a while there's a bonus. So this season, I am so excited to be back. We sort of skipped the spring season this year because I was deep in process work and allowing life to happen. And so I'm really grateful for the space to do that, and I am back and so excited to share all of the lessons that I have learned, and I get to share them with some friends this season. I'm really excited to introduce you to them. So this season is very special. Every episode I will be interviewing a different co-guide from the Rooted Summit, which is an online virtual healing summit that I am co-producing with 4 other amazing guides and practitioners, and our wonderful moderator, Brig. And so this Rooted online summit is being released on June 22nd. All of the workshops are pre-recorded, and you will have access to all of them once you register, and you will have access for life. And I'm going to leave it there because you're going to hear from these amazing guests, and I know you're going to want to sign up. And I'm so excited because you get to do it for free and then have it to work with whenever it works for your schedule. You don't have to show up for anything. It's not anything that you have to be present for at a specific time. It is completely customizable for you. And so without further ado, I would love to welcome our guest, Devorah Brinkerhoff. Here we are with my good friend, Devorah. Now, I always just say Devorah Brinkerhoff, but it's actually Devorah Brinkerhoff. Is that your artist's signature name too?
Yeah, when I was really young, even still in college, they said go by D. Hake so that nobody knows you're a woman.
Gross.
Right?
I would have flipped off the professor immediately.
I'm so glad. I don't know if it's conditioning. I'm sure it was part of my conditioning to just be like, of course that's what you want me to do. And of course that makes sense. And of course I'll do it. So that's what I did.
Until you didn't.
Until I didn't, until I was like, well, I am a woman. And when people come to the openings, they expect to see a man, which is just crazy. Like applying to galleries, all of that, they would always return a letter, Dear Mr. Brinkerhoff. And it was insane. And so then they come to the openings and they're like, I expected a man. And I'm like, well, surprise. Anyhow, so.
I had a sort of similar experience when I was still acting professionally. After I got divorced, I changed my last name back to an old family name. It wasn't my maiden name, but it's a family name, Cofresi. And I remember filming an audition, and you always slate your name. So, hi, I'm Chloe Cofresi, I'm reading for da-da-da. And I said it just like that. Hi, I'm Chloe Cofresi. And I sent it to my manager as take a look at it before I send it to the casting director. And she said, I'm wondering if there's just something with the way that you're saying your name that feels like a little off. And I said, do you mean because I'm rolling my R and pronouncing it in Spanish? And she said, yes, that's it. And I was like, well, I'm Latina, and that's how you say my name. And I'm not going to whitewash my name to try and get an audition. Like, that was part of the beginning of the end for me. I was like, this is not the game for me anymore.
I'm just so impressed with the awareness, because I had no idea. I think that was really part of my path, is coming back into consciousness about what those messages actually are asking us to become, and that you had such awareness, right? Like straight out of the gate, it seems like you had awareness that I did not have. I'm impressed.
I will receive it. I will receive it. I don't know if it's so much awareness as my mother would probably say the rebellious spirit that has lived in me since I was born. But there is a like, no, you're not gonna fuck with me. Like, no, this is my name. You're not fucking with me. And I think that this. So let me back up a little bit. We're talking with my good friend Devorah Brinkerhoff, who is a phenomenal artist and also one of our beloved Rooted guides for the Rooted Summit. And I have known Devorah for about a year, a little over a year. And we've been talking weekly, at least weekly, for a year. And so I feel like I've really had a gift in getting to know you. And I've actually done your work, your soul portrait experience, which we'll get into. And it was amazing. And I'm so glad that people get to get like a little taste of what working with you is in the summit. And so we'll come back to the summit, but I really want to kind of talk about you and your journey, because I'm fascinated by you. I love you so much, and you inspire me. And you're just so fucking cool. So, and I know from conversations that you don't always feel that way. So I want to acknowledge that right out the gate, and still say that that's how I experience you. So you, you're a mom, you're a wife, you're an artist, and you've been you before you were any of those things. So what has the process of remembering you looked like? Like how has that developed in your life?
That's jumping right in. Thanks,
Let's go.
Chloe. Let's go. Remembering me has been a long path. I think that I'll go back and say that I also deep inside have a very fiery spirit, and a rebellious spirit. And I actually am so grateful for that, because I honestly think it's what kept me fighting to find out who I really am, and let go of all the false beliefs and identity. I mean, they exist, right? It could be an infinite number of layers in all of us, but I think that you get down to more towards the core of who you are, and life starts to really shift, and become a beautiful thing rather than a fight, right? So there's so much like I'm a fighter to stop fighting, if that makes sense. Like there's a lot of surrender that's happened, and I was a fighter, and I had to be, right? I really had to be, but that's not how I am internally. I'm sort of a little squishy, soft marshmallow on the inside, like I think a lot of us are, right? Super tender and sensitive, and it's an interesting dance back and forth between. I don't quite know how to say it. Just when to fight for yourself, how to show up in sovereignty and strength is often quiet, right? Like it wasn't quiet when I was younger, and it's gotten a lot quieter over the years. So life is easier.
I'm curious if you're willing to share what that fighting looked like when you were younger. Was it always I call the version of myself that, and I'm not being facetious when I say this. Under the right circumstances, I know that I could kill someone. Like, right? So that part of me is like the feral part of me. And so I'm curious if when you say that you were fighting for you, was it this, like, was it that feral part of you? Was it, how did fighting show up? How did it look like?
I think that that's a really interesting question, because there are always two sides to the same coin, right? We're wanting to become ourselves. I really wanted to know who I was, and I felt like the only way I could understand who I was is through the eyes of other people. And so out of the gate, I was down the wrong path, because you're not going to find out who you are. You are and you're not, right? So we're reflected by other people. Who I put out is who I received, but I didn't understand how that worked. And so I was yes, feral, yes, fighting, yes, in an enormous amount of fear, but I didn't know it, right? Like, I was really unconscious about how I moved through the world, and I wanted belonging, and I wanted love, and I wanted acceptance and approval. And none of those things were mirrored back to me. In fact, many of the opposite things were mirrored back to me. And that's where the feralness came in. And so I had an expectation of rejection when I was in the world. And so I maneuvered, I manipulated, I was a chameleon. And all of those things were really a result of very early childhood abuse. But I didn't know it. I didn't have a memory. So I had a very integral belief that I needed to show up as whoever and whatever another person wanted. So to be in automatic service, and I want to add the word again, unconscious. So in unconscious automatic service to others, especially men or boys, depending on where I was and what crowd I was in. So confused. I would say I was incredibly confused, and underneath it, deeply, deeply hurt and scared, which showed up as anger. So I wouldn't say it was very fun to be around me. Although, something must have been working because I'm here and I had the experience of what I thought were really close friends. And I thought I was part of a family that truly was a great family. And they are. And right, there's a lot of unspoken pain that got spread around without any awareness, and that causes a lot of harm. So I was good at playing both sides. I could cause harm, and I could really care for people. And you receive harm and you cause harm in equal, I believe, in equal measures. Until you don't, until the harm inside is so big and unmanageable and running your life that you're like, I got to figure this out. Like, I need to figure this out, or I'm not going to make it. I don't want to make it.
Yeah. Wow. I imagine that there are people listening who are in that place of, I can't do this anymore. This isn't working. And I remember a moment. I'm so grateful that this was only a moment and it didn't last longer. And I know that there are people who it is a whole season for them. But I had this moment where I thought, I can't do this anymore. And there's no way out. Like, there's no way that this can change. And it has. And I'm so grateful that it has. But I'm really kind of being pulled to talk with you more about that moment. Because I think for so many of us, when we're in it, it can feel like there's no way out of this. There is no way out of this. And we can hear a lot of the stories from the other side but there is a way out. And look, this is what all awaits you, which is wonderful and true, and I'm all for it. But you can't get to the beautiful and the wonderful until you actually move through that moment. And if you feel like it is impossible to move through that moment, I'm really feeling led, like, for us to talk a little bit about exactly that. Like, where do you look when it feels like there's nowhere and no way that this can get better? Where did you look? How did that show up for you?
That's a really good question. And I think it's different for everyone, that feeling of no way out, and seasons. It can be one season, it can be many seasons. And for those, that kind of darkness and that kind of weight is a terrible, terrible burden. I think it gets to a place where it doesn't even feel scary. And that's when it actually becomes really scary, is when that level of detachment from your own beauty, your own value, like when you feel like your value is just non-existent. I think that is, I find it difficult to put words to it. And if people are in that place, I want to sit next to them, right? Because it takes a witness, I think, to hold space without any kind of convincing. Because when you're in that, you can't hear anyone, right? You're in a prison of your own mind, and our minds can really trap us. And the way that it's a walk, right? You're walking out of the destruction of your critical mind down into the tenderness of your own heart. And if there's anything, if there is a tiny spark inside of you, right? There's an ember in all of us, and it needs to be fueled. We need to feed that. And I was lucky enough to have enough of an ember left to witness it inside of myself. And that's perhaps the fire that my mother was talking about, and was reflected back to me and can be really used against us, right? So I think especially when we're coming from abuse and we're in the culture that we live in, that water gets really poured on that ember. Become different. Don't be you. And so that doesn't work, right? And if the ember is still inside of you, then blow on it, visit it, water it, grow it, feed it. Your ember is inside. It's not in anybody else. And so it's walking out of your mind and into your heart. And the way I did that was through creativity. It was an unspoken release valve for me that allowed me to feed my own ember and to quiet the voices outside, quiet the external world, quiet my own mind, and walk into my heart and start trusting my heart more than anybody else's. And that was a very long and difficult lesson. And there were weeks and months and seasons, as you say, where I forgot, but there was always a return. And so if you're in that space, you have what it takes, and you have what it takes. But when you're in that space, you don't believe it. And so that's a tricky thing. But I want to encourage everybody to remember that they have absolutely all the value in the world, and it's in their own hearts.
I love what you just said. And as you were speaking, what was landing for me was that creativity for you was your witness, right? Like creating the art. In my mind, the way I see it is both in the process of making the art and then having this piece that's reflecting back to you everything that you just put in. There's like two sides of the witnessing that's going on in that.
Yeah. Yes. It was a way to nudge me towards my own awareness. And so I was very lucky. I think that I truly believe we all have inherent creativity, and those are the things that light us up, that bring us joy, that quiet our mind and take us into a deeper connection beyond the character of who we are. So when I was in the studio, that's what painting and drawing was for me. Being in the studio, and I would go without even knowing, I would leave the conditioning, the thoughts, the mind, and enter into a flow state that was just basically relief. And later on, I could see and reflect parts of myself that were talking to me, wanting to be seen, wanting to be witnessed, and giving me the tools to see myself. So exactly what you're saying, it was very empowering when I recognized what the act of creativity, just the pure making, allowed me to do. And it's taking nothing and making form. And so whether you're gathering ingredients and making a beautiful meal, or digging in the dirt and creating a gorgeous garden, you're taking what many of us call formless and creating form. And to me, that's creativity. It doesn't matter if it's drawing or painting or cooking or whatever it is. It can be anything, dance, whatever, writing. It's endless. Building, working on a car, tinkering, creating. It's creating. And that creative energy, I think, is our natural humanity. I think it's humanity, and I think we're all capable of great harm, and I think we're all capable of great beauty. And creativity for me was a way to find and connect to the beauty that's in all of us. So we're everything all the time. And that means we're possibility all the time. And that's big. You can take it anywhere. And so if you're in the dark night of the soul, you're in the dark night of the soul. And I often would talk about how if you have experienced the depths of your own darkness, you are capable of experiencing the equal opposite side of that, which is just, I believe, exquisite, blissful beauty and light. So again, we're everything. And that is a big deal. It's a big deal. It opens every single door and it shuts a lot, but you have to be willing to ride those waves back and forth. There are really no answers outside of you. It puts the empowerment and the responsibility and the burden of your wellness on you, back to you, in your hands.
I'm curious if in this ownership of your own experience and your perceptions of the world, what was it about really seeing that for what it is that facilitated the move from like the gallery space into more of the healing through art space?
Well, this is I think it's a complicated question for me to answer, and I'm going to do my best. So if I start going off in a wild spiral tangent, please bring me back. So in the name of what I thought was success, which is, it's quite lovely. You get to be in a studio and you're creating for a show, and your only job is to be the artist and make work, and then have a show. And so that's in a gallery, you have an opening, people come, it's a lot of fun. And the people who tended to resonate and buy my work had really intense lived experience themselves. So my work resonated with the people who had walked through their own trenches and had felt some darkness. That also means that my work didn't appeal to most of the people out there. And so a lot of people would come into my studio for open studios, which were, again, a lot of fun, and they would run for the hills, right? They're like, they walk in, they walk right back out. They're like, oh, hell no, am I walking in and talking to this person? No. So my work pulls on people. They have reactions to it. And I grew up in a family where, please smile more. You'd be so pretty if you put on makeup, if you lost weight. Why don't you create paintings that are happy? Why, I want you to paint this painting of children smiling on a beach with colors and a beach umbrella and, frisbees and dogs. And I'm just like, absolutely not. Like that, I don't know how to do that. I have no interest in doing that. I'm not the person for you. So I recognized in the gallery space that I was still performing, that I was still hiding behind a veneer that was wanting acceptance and approval from other people. And so it didn't feel authentic to me or aligned to me to create work with that end, right? Like that outcome. I wanted to create work that had really deep meaning. And as I created work, I was dissolving the false identities and the limiting beliefs and my own toxic conditioning. And I needed to do that in a very specific way, which for me was revisiting all of the ideas that I had about myself that did not serve me, and investigating, like, where does this come from? And as a teenager, I was like blaming everyone else, and as a young adult, I wanted other people to rescue me, and then I was always placing the burden of my joy, well-being on other people. And I needed to, it doesn't work. It just does not work. And so my paintings kept telling me that I was painting things that were pretty ugly. And the people who loved them loved the juxtaposition of color with a lot of emotional tension, and they could see that they were complicated. And so I wanted to make them more complicated. And in order to do that, I had to show the level of my own mess, my own complications, and to be really transparent about it, not necessarily for anyone else, but for myself. I had to dig in deep. And when I did, I recognized that it doesn't stop with your parents. It goes beyond them and beyond them. And so you're dealing with generational lines of conditioning and messaging and fear and identity and so where does it end? And as I started to dissolve my own identities, I just found such a level of compassion and empathy towards myself, which opened up the doors to have forgiveness for myself, that was just a rippling pool that kept going. So I could absolutely accept and forgive others. But it always starts with you. And so it became, to answer your question, if I did, it is mixed media. I went through and I was reading, where did I get these messages? Where did these ideas about myself come from? And when we were chatting in the beginning, right, they're everywhere. Make pretty landscapes and still lives and smile more and lose weight and wear makeup and put on dresses and use color. And I use color in my paintings, but very, very, it's just, they have a life of their own. And it's something else that I follow. I can't even start talking about color because that's too complicated. But stories, right? I wanted to dissolve the stories because they're just stories. So my mother's story, I became very interested in other people's stories because they always came back to dissolving my own story. Who am I underneath the story? Who am I underneath all of the conditioning? And that is a very empowering process. And it freed me. It completely freed me. And so I love working with people who think that they're the lawyer or the veteran or the victim, and dissolving very slowly, very gently those identities, not to deny them at all, to honor them and to let them go back to where they came from, because I believe we are always the bridge between our past and the future we're stepping into. And there's a lot of power on that bridge, and it's the present moment, and you can walk back and forth. And I think we're meant to, right? We're not denying anything. And so in the new age, like, oh, the ego is the enemy. I'm like, no, your ego is constantly trying to help you. But don't let it run the show, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's a better way to run the show. There's a better way to play the game.
Yep. I think about that too in this spiritual space. You hear so much about, oh, I had this ayahuasca journey and experienced ego death like you wouldn't believe. And I'm like, I don't know that that's a great thing. Like I'm all for all of the multidimensional realities that exist, which I do believe they exist. And I cannot deny that whether it's all perception and this is all a projection, whatever this is its own specific thing. We are in a very specific experience, and in this experience, we have an ego. And if we didn't need it, we wouldn't have it. Like I truly believe that. I don't think it's like, what do they call it? Vestigial organs, like your appendix. I still feel like there's some sort of reason for the appendix that we don't actually know yet. But I think if we have these things, we have them for a reason. And so definitely that I feel that with your work. And I'm curious, when did it start moving from, okay, this is work that I'm doing for myself to clear my story and really own my story, to actually, this is what I want to be offering to other people? Where did that switch happen? And talk to me a little bit about that.
I love that question. So I've always been curious again about stories, and I was obsessed with my own. But when I got bored with my own, that was the sign, right? It was such a relief. And that curiosity, when I could reflect that my original curiosity in the past was a means to an end. So if I gave somebody my attention, I was very good at asking questions. And so people felt really comfortable with me, and that allowed me to belong, right? And so my curiosity was more a means to an end to receive belonging. And when I recognized that was kind of shitty, and it wasn't genuine, so I needed to really be curious about myself first. And then when the boredom came in, I was like, oh, okay, now I can get curious about other people's stories. Now, when I run into people and I hear the fear or the victim or the control, I'm like, oh, okay, there is something that wants to be released, let go of, so that you can really step into the fullness of who you are. And I'm not really answering your question. Once I understood the power of what the process for me, and I could articulate it, which is still difficult, I knew that I could help other people set themselves free by dissolving their stories. Again, to honor them, but to let them go. I was so attached to so many things, and it became such a prison. And the more we let go of, the more we discover we can let go of. And so the process really meets people where they are. And that's what I love about it. It's beautiful. It's subtle. I think people can be really scared about looking inside, but through this, it can be it's fun, right? I mean, you'll have to tell me, we haven't really talked about what your experience was like. I'm so curious. Everybody has different experiences with it. And some people really, it's like vision boarding and collaging and crafting, and it can be all of those things. And it can also go as deep as you want to go. Like it can go down, like really, really down.
Yeah, I would love to share with you, and I think actually this is great because we can kind of explain what soul portraits are and what your process is with folks. So, my how I would describe soul portraits to people, or my experience with them, is that Devorah sent me this amazing kit in the mail. So I opened my little package in the mail and was so excited. And it has canvas to work with, and it has paints, and it has all of the things that you need to create this glue, brushes, little sticks, journal, everything. It had everything that I could need. It was so I got it and I was so excited. And then I did nothing with it for about 9 months. And I kept saying every week when we would talk, I know I have to do it. I know I have to do it. And I'll explain kind of, it didn't feel in the moment in my body like resistance. I didn't feel like, oh, I'm putting this off. But what I knew the process would entail, which is going through my stuff and finding artifacts that I wanted to incorporate into this soul portrait. So it can be anything, but for me, I'm a writer, so I have so many journals and pictures and scripts that I've written, all of these things. And I remember saying, I just have to like sit down and go through it all to figure out what I want to use. And that seemed very daunting to me because I had this huge box of writing and materials and pictures, and I didn't feel like they were holding me down. You know, I was going into this was like, well, I'm supposed to be releasing something, but I don't really feel like any of this stuff is weighing me down, so I'm not sure what to choose to work with. And then I had to move, and so I was like, oh, hey, this is a perfect time because I have to go through all this stuff and see what I actually want to take with me and what I maybe don't. And in the past, I've moved so many times. I've moved like 22 times in my life, if not more. And so in the past, I would have just taken the whole thing with me, like not even looked at it. Here's my box of stuff. I'm bringing it. Like that's just the box of stuff that I bring. So you and I set up some time because I said, for me, pretty confident with the actual putting it together part. Like that part, I'm good with. It's the pulling out the pieces and figuring out what I want to work with that was that I could feel a little resistance to. So I asked you to sit down with me, and we had a Zoom call, just our FaceTime something, and I pulled out the box and we just went through, and you were kind of simply witnessing. You weren't really giving me direction of like, oh, that's something that you could work with, or that you were simply there holding the space, giving me accountability to make sure that I actually did it. And as we were sitting there and I'm pulling out all of these things, it hit me, oh, I'm feeling a type of way about like ripping up my writings, like ripping pages out. And journals that I was like, I remember saying, I'm afraid if I don't hold on to this, I won't remember. And as a writer, and specifically a memoirist, I use my life in so much of what I write. I had this vision of me as an 80-something-year-old woman wanting to write it all and not being able to remember, and feeling like, oh, if I had those journals, I could remember exactly what I was feeling and the words that I used, so it could be real and authentic. And that was the hard part for me, was sitting with, does this mean I'm going to forget? And it doesn't mean that I will forget. And you actually asked me, you said, do you really think that you'll forget what it felt like to have lived those experiences? And I don't think I can forget what it felt like to live those experiences, because they're so integral to who I am now. But that was a big moment for me. And then once I had all of the stuff together, the actual process of putting it on the canvas and gluing and painting over it, painting words or pictures, that was fun. And that happened really fast. Like, I did all of that part maybe in like an hour. It was just there. And I didn't have a vision of what I wanted it to look like. It was just kind of like, I think this should go here. I think this should go here. Da 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 da. And then I was like, I don't even know what this is, what I write over it. I don't know. And I just started freestyling whatever came through. And it's basically my entire adult life from college until 39 in one piece. So all of it, the first play that I wrote, letters from my husband when we got divorced, and he would, like, all of these things are there. And some of it's really painful and some of it's really beautiful. And when you look at it, I don't have it in this house because I literally did it the day before I moved. So it was drying at my grandmother's house, and she's framing it for me. And she's like, if you can pick it up and take it to your house next time you come to visit. But it is visually quite dark. There's a lot of reds and darker greens and blacks and blues. So putting that all together, it looks pretty dark. And I remember once I was done and it was drying, I showed my grandmother and I said, I'm not sure yet if I want to keep this or not. I'm not sure. The point isn't, and you say that when you send out the soul kits, you don't have to keep it, you don't have to put it up, you could burn it, you could throw it out. The point is to actually create the thing and then release it in whatever way. And so my grandmother said, well, if you were to put this up in your house, when you look at it, would you feel sad or angry about everything that it represents? Or would you be able to see it and say, yeah, that was then, and I'm so glad that's not my life anymore? And I do think it will be the second one. For me personally, I know that's not the experience for everybody. And I will say, I believe everything happens in exactly the right time, at exactly the right moment, even if it feels like the worst fucking moment. It's probably the right one. And that experience of making the soul portrait happened right before moving to North Carolina for what ended up being 6 weeks, having a very painful experience that mirrored so much of the trauma that I was letting go of. Like, it all resurfaced in one last, are you sure you're done with this? Oh yeah, I'm fucking done. I'm moving to South Carolina. Forget this. We're not doing this. But it all happened like right in that same week, in that moment. And it was something that I sat with for a few weeks after everything happened in North Carolina. And I thought, wow, I was really giving myself medicine for something that hadn't happened yet, that my soul knew was about to happen. And I think it's very interesting that I didn't take it with me to North Carolina. It stayed at my grandmother's house.
Wow.
because it wasn't done yet. Like,
Oh, I have chills this
right?
whole time you're talking. Yes, that's insane. Wow.
And I do feel like I'm able to, part of why I was able to release that experience and the move and then get to South Carolina where everything's truly wonderful. Why all of that happened so fast, partially I think is because I was able to, in a way that didn't feel like work, do work through this practice.
I love that you said it that way, because when you're dealing with, in a tactile way, the materials of your life, cookbooks, journals, letters, photos, the things that you think are you, right? And they have played a role in who you've become and who you think you are. And as you're reviewing those parts of your life, you realize that you're the one reviewing them. As you rip things up and put them down, you're creating room inside your body. Because they're in your body. The experiences are in your body. We have a living record of everything that we have lived and experienced. And I don't remember a lot of them. And then when I'm reviewing things, there is a remembering and there's a releasing that just happens when you rip something up. Like, when early trauma, working with young kids, you're like, rip up this phone book. And back in the day, the phone books, you could sit on them. They're like a big. And it's hard to do, but it feels really good. Or go break glass. Like, it feels good. And you don't have to understand why. And you don't have to understand what you're doing. But somehow it just creates this room inside your body where there's more capacity to then deal with the now experiences that you run into every day, whether that's a really horrific experience or more capacity to drive in traffic or go to the grocery store or care for yourself when you're feeling unwell. There's more capacity to meet yourself. It's so empowering, and you don't have to understand it. It just happens. It happens without you knowing. And that's the magic of it. I had no idea that reviewing materials and ripping them up and adding them to something on a canvas would create so much more room in my life to let go. Why are we holding on so tightly in the first place? What do we think that's giving us? Whether it's a couch or a desk or a letter or a photo, am I the same person? No. 5 minutes ago, I'm a different person than I am right now. It's so fast. So how do you stay with who you really are? The you that never changes, the you that's always witnessing. And if you can witness yourself, which you so clearly did without even knowing it, then you can handle something that was not fun. And I was so impressed with you, and you handled it with such grace and integrity. And you met yourself, right? You met yourself and you cared for yourself. You didn't ask anybody to do it for you because they can't, right? They can't. But you can, and you did, and you do, and you have your own practice. And we need more than one practice, is at least what I've found, because I've worked with you and I love your practice. And it's a way to enter your body that's really physical and really tangible on a physical level. And mine is tangible. This process is tangible on an energetic level, like an unconscious level. And they all work together. I think there are unconscious tools always working in our favor in what all of us in this, who want to be guides and who want to help other people, it's an energetic thing that we're shifting and changing and letting go of. Yeah, whether we do that lymphatically, physically, visually, tangibly, there are so many ways, in the garden, in the dirt, in the kitchen, in the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a way to get back to who we are. That's all it is. So I love what you're saying, and I love that it opened up. It just opens up more room, right? We collect things and we become kind of full, we're overflowing with the stuff of life. And we think it matters. We think it makes us better, and it doesn't. it can feel good, and there's nothing wrong with that great pair of shoes or the wonderful couch. But it's not who we are, right?
Yeah. Um, I I'm wondering if we share this in common. When you were a little girl, did you like playing in the mud?
Loved it. I think the mud is the best. And in New England, right? I love mud season. People hate mud season. It's a season, right? There's another season in New England, and it's mud season. And they talk about like tires specifically for mud season. I think it's hilarious. I love the mud. I love how it smells. I love how it feels. And mud has a different feel and smell in New England than anywhere else. But I do love the mud. So that's a very interesting question, Chloe. What do you think that means? What does loving the mud mean?
I think it means that we are comfortable playing in what other people think of as shit.
Yeah. I also like manure.
Yeah. I mean,
Right?
my grandmother's house in New Jersey, she doesn't have the same house now, but the house that I grew up in New Jersey when she had it, the backyard, I remember there was this like little area between these two trees that had a little dip in the earth, and it would get really muddy when it rained. And I remember, I mean, I must have been 3 or 4 years old, and I was out there just like squishing in the mud and playing. My mom was fine with it, but my grandmother was, don't let her do that. ¿Qué está haciendo? Bring her back inside. Like, she can't. And my mom, I remember her saying, like, she's fine. Just let her play. One of the things that my mom got really right was letting me play in the mud, and I give her credit for that. So I was asking that because I think there's something that was mirroring an internal quality about myself that exists to this day, which is I am very okay getting dirty. I'm in all the ways. I really am. I'm okay with things being messy, and I find that the more messy it is, the more life comes up out of it. And I even have a tattoo on my hip that's of a lotus flower, and it has the roots of it are cursive, and it says a Thich Nhat Hanh quote, which is "No mud, no lotus."
Huh.
And
Beautiful.
I love that quote because it's so true. Like, I have been fascinated by lotus flowers since I was a kid. They're so beautiful, and they don't exist without the mud. Like, they don't exist without having to fight through the shit to come up and be seen.
Right. It's a beautiful reflection, right? I mean, I think that if we all as humans could embrace the messiness, could embrace the mud, and really allow that darkness to be what it is, because you cannot have the light without the dark. You cannot have the out breath without the in breath. You need it all, which brings us back to what we were saying earlier. We are everything. And you need it all. It all is there for a reason, even the appendix, even the mud, right? The roots, the tree needs the roots, and we don't see them. We do sometimes. And there's a Carl Jung quote, right, about how the roots reach to hell and the branches reach to heaven. I mean, we are tethered between the two in the human experience on this earthly plane. We are everything compressed into form. And I love thinking about that because, if you listen to people talk about dark matter expanding faster than the speed of light, and that there's dark matter in between each cell of our body. And I'm just like, that is so fucking cool. Like, what are we? We're just energy in motion. And if we could actually see our pixelated selves, that is cool. And so I love thinking about that. We get so attached to form. And so, like letters and journals, it's form. And when we rip it up, it becomes smaller and more digestible. And so the identities that we're attached to, the form that we think we are, the character that we believe we need to be. If we disassemble it, we become like who we really are. And that's where the power is. It's super cool. Then what? What are you going to do with who you are? And you get to decide. So I love that. And I love that when people do this work, there's a remembering that happens. Like I can be the witness. Like a photo, you can look back and you're like, oh, I was so gorgeous or whatever, or I loved that summer and what a tan, or what fabulous like fitness, or what a great relationship, or I was surrounded by friends. And all of that's true. And it's still true. And that was then. Like, who am I now? And if I'm pining for who I was, then how can I become who I am? How can I be who I am now if I am attached to who I was? And it works the other way. If I hated who I am, how do I really love who I am now if I'm holding on to the stories that said I wasn't enough, that I didn't matter? And they all go together. The mud and the sunshine. Like, I love the rain. So
Yeah. Yeah, I find the rain very sensual.
that's
Yeah.
the other thing, right? Like when you're saying dirty, it's all sensual. Like life is
Yeah. Oh,
sensual. It's
yeah.
tactile. It's everything. And it can be isolating and solitary and heartbreaking. And so how do we embrace it all? We have to include the mess. It's essential, right? That's where the creativity is. Does a meal happen without a mess? Does a gorgeous, fabulous meal happen without the mess?
Not in my kitchen. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think, you were talking about the young quote, the roots going into the depths of hell and the branches reaching to heaven. And it's that imagery is very much what we were talking about as we were creating the Rooted Summit. And I mean, almost exactly those words. We were talking about how we really felt like, for a while we were tossing around the idea of balance, like we were trying to come up with the theme and the what we were going to call it. And we had some conversations around, maybe balance isn't real. Maybe it's not the thing to aspire to, because the moment you find it, you're out of balance again, because life is always happening and nothing's in a vacuum. So you find balance and then shit hits the fan and you've got to find it again. So instead of looking for balance, how can we be centered and rooted in ourselves so that whatever is happening around us, we're still here, like strong, and that's where the rooted kind of word came in. And I have to, and with joy, I get to give you so much credit for the beautiful, beautiful image that you created for the summit. And people who've signed up for it, you see it in every email that we sent you. It's on the website. It's this beautiful tree that is deeply rooted and also expansive. And in the tree is this image of a woman who is also rooting and expanding and kind of turning, and her heart is green and the roots are green. It's just so beautiful. And you essentially kind of went through like a soul portrait process for Rooted, where you took all of our words and visual images that we gave you of what Rooted meant to each of us, and then from the ethers created this really beautiful, powerful piece. And I know that you have said that it was difficult for you because you're used to working with really large spaces and canvases, and this was a very small piece in comparison to how you normally work. And I'm wondering if you've seen that tension showing up in any other areas of your life where you want to go big but you're like constricted, and so you have to put the bigness into something smaller.
Well, I think that tension is life. I think that all of us are so much bigger than we give ourselves credit for. And that's also embracing that tension. I love thinking about tension and connectivity. And so the goal is always for me I wanted in making the portrait for Rooted to encapsulate the power of each of our offerings and what everyone was speaking to in their own healing, because we can't heal, we can't help anyone else unless we've reached a certain place inside of ourselves that doesn't need anything from another. Like we belong in community, and we grow in community, and we need each other. And we also must be grounded enough within ourselves that we don't lose ourselves in community. And so that juxtaposition between being really grounded in self and also able to be flexible with what happens in everyday life. And that is, there's some tightness there, there's tension there. And so I don't have a studio right now, and but I can work small and with paper and glue and water. And when I was creating the piece, it got really dark, and I was like, well, there is darkness, right? And wanting to allow that to be there, and also the energy, right? So we're all energy, and I had everybody's words and papers and images, and I ripped it all up and I put it all down, and then I wrote everybody's what felt to me like intention and kind of energetic poetry. And I hand wrote it because I think that anchors us in the now. And that's part of the process. And then to allow an image to come through. And that was tricky because when I'm working with other people and doing a commission, I'm working with one person's energy and I'm running it through my own. So there's always my own and another person. And then when there are 5 of us or 7, which is what we started out with until life took other people where they needed to go. But their energy is included in it because they started with us. And I think that's beautiful, right? So there is a community that expands and contracts. And trees need to meet the wind and meet the storm, and they have to have roots that are strong enough. So a tree was definitely the right, trees are often, I love trees. Who doesn't? Anyhow, that felt very obvious to me, and life, and we're all women. And then my husband is a moderator, and he's a wonderful masculine presence, and we all share feminine and masculine qualities. And so it was a very interesting thing to hold, and to then really quiet the energy of everyone and come back to myself is a great practice. And the tree that I made shows some tension. There's some stiffness there. And I thought that was very perfect, right? At times I was like, oh, I need to do it over. And I'm like, no, it requires the acceptance of where your eye might get stuck, because that tells us something. And I could look at the places in the tree where I felt that my eye got stuck, and it could reflect back to me where I'm stuck inside. So again, it's just a beautiful mirror of lived experience for me. And I wonder what you feel when you look at it, because I think each one of us has a different relationship with it, as we have different relationships with everything in our house. And so when you see your own soul portrait again, and if you decide to burn it or rip it up or sew it back together or paint over it, it's just another layer of who you are that gets loved and accepted. And same as the soul portrait for the Rooted Summit, it holds everything and has possibility. But I had to work in a way I never had. I don't typically, I used acrylic paint pens, and that was the first time I had ever used them. So I was learning a new medium, and I'm like, okay, and what does energy look like? And it turned out to be just dots, right? dots and dots and dots and dots under, and there was cursive, teeny tiny cursive, to represent more energy. And like, we're always receiving and leaving. So I feel like we leave parts of ourselves wherever we go, whether that's a coffee shop, bus station, the chair I'm sitting in now, everyone who's ever sat in this chair, who made this chair, where did it come from? I love thinking about energy and how we overlap. So hopefully that's in the tree. But
it's definitely in the tree. It's definitely in the tree. As we wrap up, I want to remind folks who maybe haven't listened to the previous episode that yes, this is going to be released on Friday. So you still have time to sign up for Rooted. You can go to rootedsummit.love and you can sign up there. It's totally free. You get access to all 5 of our offerings, and you can watch them whenever you want on your own time. You have access forever. And we're very excited that on Wednesday, July 9th, we're going to be doing a live roundtable. Yeah, a Rooted roundtable, which everyone who's registered for Rooted will have access to live and be part of. And we want you there. We want to take questions. We want to see how this interacted with your nervous system. And Devorah's offering in Rooted is so phenomenal. I'm so glad that I was able to be part of it and do it, and that I get to do it like whenever I want now, because I have a piece of you with me always. So I wanted to make sure that I will have all of your contact information in the show notes as well. But if people want to reach out to you, if they're wanting to work with you, how can they do that? What might that look like? Let us know.
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and I have a website, which is soulportrait.art, and anybody can get in touch with me that way as well. The easiest is probably Instagram and Facebook.
What's your Instagram handle?
It's my name, so Devorah Brinkerhoff, or it might just be Devorah Brinkerhoff. Not sure.
I think it's Devorah Brinkerhoff.
Yeah. That tells you how like tech savvy I am. I'm just like,
we'll make sure that it's here.
Yeah. So people can get in touch with me and ask questions. There are a lot of questions that come up when people do this. And the thing that I love to say is that you can't get it wrong, and it's doing the work for you, and you really don't have to worry or think about it. We tend to worry too much, and we tend to think about everything too much, or at least when people are trying to do something quote unquote like creative and they feel like they have to be an artist. I'm like, you do not have to. It's better if you're not. You get more out of it if you don't know what you're doing. And especially the exercise in Rooted, right? It's not a soul portrait experience. It's much smaller, and it just helps you get out of your head for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just fun. Yeah. Yep. I might get a scribble tattoo on me just to be like, remember the mess, remember the mud.
Oh, I love it. Send me a picture if you do. Well, Devorah, it has been so wonderful talking with you, and I'm so excited for our community to get to know you a little bit more with this episode. So thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Chloe. It's really beautiful to talk to you. I love you so much.
I love you so much too.
We'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Queridas, we made it to one of my favorite parts of each episode, the moment of flow. I love poetry. I love words and rhythm, and how when you mix the two, you get into a beautiful state of flow. And so I want to leave you with that at the end of each episode. So here it is, your moment of flow. Portrait of a soul. Go through them, she says. I'll sit and watch with you. A witness. To the piles of journals filled with etched memories, pieces of a heart strewn everywhere and put back together, ripped and restored and repeat. Lines of dialogue never spoken, screenplays holding the promise of future frames, photos of a version of me that never was me, never looked like me, contorted herself and her hair to fit into boxes and labels she never chose. The witness watches. Time moves imperceptibly, as do my hands, ripping up the words, the moments, the resistance. The pieces start to fill in the blank, a canvas of healing. Paints and glues and sticks and brushes. The curiosity of a 4-year-old takes over, creating beauty from the torn-up pieces of a life lived long ago, and still being lived, a living memento, tattooed on canvas, indelible, and yet forever changeable.